in Minnesota. I think we are pretty much into fall fishing now. And for some people, it's a kind of a love-hate relationship. A lot of people love the fall, love to go hunting, love football, but winter's coming around the corner. It's some of the best fishing of the year, but some people struggle, some people love it, some people see a lot of success, other people are still trying to figure out that fall bite because it's new to them. Maybe they haven't spent as many out on the water, maybe they spend more time in the deer stand or in a duck blind. So I'm going to share some of my tips today on kind of what I like to do in fall fishing and where I've seen success, at least up where I live, in tournaments, and kind of strategies I use that are pretty consistent producers on lakes that, and it kind of from lake to lake, it for the most part holds up. It's been only a few times it hasn't held up. I've done pretty well in tournaments in the fall up here. Gotten a handful of wins on lakes that I had not been on or hadn't practiced or hadn't been to in years, and just show up and run that program and do well. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about tonight, among other things, wherever the topic takes us, wherever the chat takes us. But that's the plan on HellaBass Live. Sorry for the short notice. Just caught an earlier flight back from Vegas tonight. Ended up not being on hockey practice duty. So solo stream tonight. What's up, Trevor? How was your big trip, Trevor, to meet up with all the kayakers? But here we are. As always, HellaBass Live, presented by Arsenal Fishing and boosted by Powerless Lithium. And this is a good time of year to like put that trolling motor in the water and let it eat. So having good batteries in the fall and covering a lot of water can be a recipe for success, in my opinion. No gambling, Jim. It's really not my thing. I actually like ordered dinner in every night that I was there. Didn't really go out and do anything. Did some video work, went through some footage, did things like that. But yeah, Vegas and Orlando are two places that I kind of dread traveling for work, just because the airports are just not good and the hustle and the bustle. AJ's in the chat. Congratulations, AJ. Tied the knot, like the big knot, this past weekend, from what I understand. Brian's got our sound check. No tubes were cracked, Bobby. Yeah, that's what I told the guy from the customer. I was like, yeah, I get my fix fishing tournaments, and after the opens this year, that was all the money I needed to lay down. I didn't need to spend any time at any tables. No roulette. Didn't go anywhere near a casino. I mean, obviously there's little slot machines and video poker machines everywhere you go, but I could have AJ on. If AJ wanted to come on, he could come on. He could send me a note. Otherwise, maybe AJ can start prepping for our trip, but I also need to start prepping on. All right. So if you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, I didn't really post anything to YouTube. There'll be a YouTube video coming up. I think it's gonna turn out pretty good. Yeah, I'll touch on that. Diet waffles. We'll get here. But I had a tournament on kind of last minute. Got into a tournament on Lake Minnetonka, and so one of our co-anglers in my bass club, Sawyer. So the Lakeville fishing team had a fundraiser tournament, high school fishing team on Lake Minnetonka on Saturday. So they've been posting about this for a while. It was like $2,000 to win, maximum 50 boats. And kind of had looked at it, but Tonka's not really my thing. Wasn't sure what my schedule was going to be like leading up, after the opens and leading up to the national championship, work, kids sports, that kind of stuff. And they kind of tagged me, called me out on Facebook, and I was like, I tagged Brian Banger, and I was like, what do you think? Because he fishes like out there in the fall and the Viking and that kind of stuff. And he's like, got to work Saturdays, took too many opens or too many Saturdays off from Intune Marine, can't take it off. And then Sawyer saw that post and he's like, "Hey, I signed up. Do you want to jump in with me?" And I was like, "Sure." I was like, "Do you want to use your boat or my boat?" And then we determined it was, going to be blowing pretty hard wind. And he's got like a 17.5 foot aluminum boat, great fishing boat. But we decided that I would take the Camus. Met him out there. I think he went out fishing. He fishes out there a little bit. He lives out that way. But I hadn't been to Minnetonka in over a year, since like last July, August. And so I was like, you can run the show in the morning. You got some deep spots you want to check. You want to run around and do some stuff. It's fine with me, And then if that's not working, we'll uh we'll try some things. The things that I normally do in the fall. Spoiler alert, Jesse. But so we started on uh an offshore spot, one of his favorite weed lines. It was kind of gassing in there, wind in the morning, pretty good. So I pitched like a big 3/4 ounce jig around a little bit, and then I was like, "Oh, it's pretty windy." It's windy, fall, so I picked up a spinner bait. So I picked up that Baitman special spinner bait, chunked that around about 5 casts in. I caught a keeper, like a 2 pounder. We put that in the box. We fished there for maybe another 15, 20 minutes. Didn't really get any bites. So we swung in on some nearby docks that I had caught fish on in the past, but it was like almost too windy for those docks. So we got out of there, and he had a stretch of kind of shallow, like grass and pads and kind of just junk weed looking stuff. And he missed a fish on a frog, had a couple bites, and he caught a keeper on a frog. It was actually a pretty nice one. It was like a 2 3/4. And we came up to our first boat dock in the calm side. And so I even started out the video, I was like, if all goes right, I will have this jig right here. This 1/2 ounce black, brown, green pumpkin. Works just about in all watercolors. And then I'll depending on the watercolor, I'll go lighter or darker trailer. And so fall time, this one's bit down a little bit, but I had a full size chunky D. So this Missile Baits Chunky D is kind of a nice, compact but bulky trailer. I typically like to go a little bigger and bulky in the fall because I'm typically fishing for a bigger bite, I feel like. So I just thread that bad boy up on there, give it a nice full profile, not necessarily like big, long, but compact. And can it be compact and bulky at the same time? Um, so I was like, with all luck, I'll be able to lock this in my hand most of the day. Sure enough, first dock we roll up to, it took a few casts under there. I didn't just eat it right away. I had to shake it in there a little bit, but I caught another 2 3/4. So, you know, we had a 2 pounder and two just under 3 pounders. And he was like, "Well, that's all I wanted to fish on this stretch." And I was like, "I've kind of fished around the corner. I've never caught any big ones, but we just caught two nice fish. Why don't we take this around the corner?" Um, and so first dock around the corner, well, I think I caught a small keeper on an Arsenal swim jig before we left, working some pads on the way out. Get around the corner, catch another keeper. It's the fifth fish. So we got three decent ones and two dinks. Uh, Further out on that dock, I slide this bad boy under a boat lift in probably 2 feet of water, bow up on a big one. It's like a 4 4 1/4, 4.5. So it's that calls out a 1 pounder, a pound and a quarter, solid 3 pound call. Very next boat dock, boat lift, catch one, almost 5. So we went from I think our first 5 weighed what, so we had see, yeah, the first 5, but once we called the first time, I don't know. When we put the second 4 pounder, we were in 17 pounds. Um, and then we stayed around there, caught a lot of fish, called a few times, got rid of some of those kind of mediocre fish. Kind of in that pattern a lot of the day. We tried some other things. I mixed in a buzz bait quite a bit. I caught some fish on a buzz bait, but nothing helped. That's a bait that I like to throw in the fall. That just wasn't the deal that day. Um, Tried some flat sides in some places where the weeds weren't too thick around some docks, like a Fritz side, but caught a lot of fish throwing jigs like this all day. and eventually came back through that stretch, and we caught one good one on a frog and another good one on a jig. Um, we kept on telling ourselves we still needed one more big bite, like a 4.5, 5 pounder the rest of the day. We ended up calling 2 more times and had, we pushed from like 18 to like 19 pounds. Um, but this typically in the fall, if I win a tournament, that's probably what my fish came on. I've also caught a disproportionate amount of the 6 pounders I've ever caught in Minnesota have been on a jig and after October 1st. Um, yeah, and those are all on the Champion Extreme 705, which I actually grabbed that from the boat just to. So my dock rod, which I think RIP, I'm not sure they may have stopped making this one, but this is the Dobbins 705C. I think they make it in a XP. I've never thrown that one, and I throw that on a Tatula SV. Typically somewhere between 17 and 22 pound fluorocarbon. I think this is like 22 pound shooter. It's getting a little need to be actually replaced this, but for some reason I ended up with a split grip, but I would probably normally go full grip. I think one time I broke this when the old model, and when I warranted it, they only had the split grip in. Still works just fine. Typically on my 5 power rods, I like a full grip, but this is what was available, and it's not that big a deal for me one way or the other. And then I'm typically covering, like this jig is going into weed clumps, it's going into pads, it's going around laydowns, it's getting skipped under trees, it's getting thrown around boat docks, stumps, anything, 0 to 3 foot where you got decent water, where you got bait. Um, so that's kind of the one over, and I flip it a lot. I'll also swim it in the fall. So, I typically like a trailer that is a good trailer for both flipping and one that will swim well. Let's see here. Let me just see if I missed any. Yeah. So diet waffles, the jig for me once fall is hard to always a jig. Sometimes two jigs on my deck. Outside of that, before when the water temp's still in the 60s, I'll definitely still mix in a frog. When the water is even down in the 50s, I'll throw buzzbait still. Chatterbait is pretty much on the deck this time of year. So like a jig or two, a frog, a buzzbait, and a chatterbait. And sometimes spinnerbaits if can play instead of a chatterbait. Um, certain lakes maybe a crank, but the main program, it's like buzzbait, jig, frog, another jig, chatterbait, like cover a bunch of water. Obviously, there's a ton of other things. Sometimes, if there's a lot of shallow grass and it's kind of yucky, I will mix in a Texas rig just because it comes through a little more cleaner, but normally a jig. And this is all largemouth. For fish and fall, for smallies, then tubes, football jigs, Minnesota rigs, things like that. Yeah, I'd like to throw balsa, but the pike are pesky up here. I'm definitely excited to break out the balsa box when we get down to Grand Lake. So Tyler, and so we do. So yeah, we won the tournament by like a pound. Third place was only like 16 something. So like second place was reasonably close, but after that it was kind of a dropped off a little bit. So Bobby is saying he's got too many baits. He tries everything, and he always catches them on a Senko. Paralysis by analysis. Too many choices. Yeah. Prince, his estate is out near Lake Minnetonka. I haven't thrown pork in some time, but I've definitely got jars of pork. I've got some of the old pork. I got some of the new pork. Probably should bring it back because honestly, when I'm on a bite where the jig bite is really good, it's so efficient because if you're gonna throw it and it's not gonna dry out, you can fish that same amount of pork all day, which is really efficient. The last time I really leveraged pork was like, ooh, 2004 on Leech Lake, where I threw it all day. I was throwing the small frit side and bluegill. I caught a couple fish on it. Nothing that contributed, but we also didn't spend a ton of time in the right section of the lake. We was around a lot of grass. I have used line conditioner. I haven't used it in a while, Tim. When the grass first starts to die, do the bass leave the flats? Mm. So, the two main things that I found to be the most successful in my part of the country in the fall is to either go shallow and fish the hard cover as the grass dies, or chase the greenest grass that's in the lake. Sometimes the greenest grass in the lake can be shallow, and sometimes it can be offshore, and it's not. It can be in multiple places, but those two things are probably the most consistent bite I found on our natural lakes. And sometimes that natural grass or that good grass can be on a flat. It can be up in a shallow bay. It can be out on a weed edge. It can be in a lot of different things. Oh, we got a BBC sighting. Brian's been on the Chunky D for a while now. On this jig, I've kind of gone to 22-pound shooter mostly, day in and day out. I will throw the jerk bait when it gets like below 50. Like this jig bite thing usually works. It's really good in the 50s and 60s water temp. Like 50 to 65, this is mainly the main thing. When it starts to get in the low to mid to upper 40s, then upper 40s you can still make this happen. I've caught some really big ones. Your bites definitely start to dwindle, but the ones you do get typically are big. And then once we get into the mid 40s, that's probably when the jerk bait comes out for me. But typically up where we live, Brian, once we get into the mid 40s, we ain't far from the 30s, and we ain't far from not getting the boat out. I've done good on the Minnesota rig on Mille Lacs. AJ says maybe he does want to come on. Oh, I don't think there's any downside to the line conditioner. So if it gives you confidence, BBC was born in 2004. What's up, Banger? How many pistachio beers are you in tonight? That Papa E pork. Not familiar with that one. A-Rig is starting in November in Kentucky Lake. What buzzbait? So the buzzbait I was throwing this past week, I had actually bought one of the Max Squeakers from Teckle. Caught some fish on it, seemed decent. More testing. I've done really well on the, what are they called? The Boogermans? The older ones. I'm sure the new ones are good too. But I would say of a buzzbait that's readily available now, I've done really well with the Wheeler Accent buzzbait. So, yeah. But Omnia has some of these in stock, both the Chunky D's and the half-ounce Bass Tech. That's what I'll probably be throwing mostly on Sunday. I'm fishing with Dan Fabiano in the Fall Brawl on East-West Rush. So, AJ's ready. Am I supposed to send you a link, AJ? I should probably. It's Boom, 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 boom. Tell you what, I'm going to take a quick break, send AJ the link. We'll be back in 1 minute with the recently nuptialed AJ.
Are you ready to reel in your next home purchase or refinance? Supreme Lending's Dream Team can help guide you through the entire mortgage process, from pre-qualification to closing. We have a wide variety of home loan programs in our tackle box, including down payment assistance and first-time homebuyer options. You can ask HellaBass. He trusted us to help finance his home. Contact the Dream Team today by searching Supreme Lending Dream Team or click the link below in the description or scan the QR code on your screen.
All right, I'm back. A couple more questions rolled in. Sent it like to AJ. What about the glide? I did not throw the Eon. If we would have gotten another big bite earlier, I probably would have broke it out. I'd like to go out and do some fun fishing and throw the glide in the fall a little bit. I just haven't had enough reps. A lot of times, the only times I get out in the fall, so maybe Saturday. I might go to a lake and do some fun fishing. But I haven't had a chance to throw the glide much in the fall. But it's crossed my mind, but it's not something that I have a ton of experience and confidence in to recommend to all the Visor gang. Good reminder from Brian. Hit that thumbs up. It costs you nothing. Helps out the stream. Andrew says, Summer Lake Vermilion, would you start on the east or west end for targeting smallmouth? I think the east end, they're both good. There's smallmouth all over that lake, Andrew. So whatever's closest to where you are, but the east end probably has more numbers. It's overall, I think, more and bigger smallmouth on the east side, but they're both pretty good. Let's see here. So yeah, like I said, mentioning Sunday, fall brawl. Saturday, maybe get out fun fishing. We'll see. Brian says he's going to try to get out tomorrow. Maybe Friday afternoon. I've got an idea of something I need to film. So maybe quick little outing on Friday afternoon. Bobby saw some action on a glide. Frank caught his first glide fish ever. I don't think Frank's here tonight. Canadian Frank caught a pike. But this is the time of year that I'd love to get out and burn it down. And like I said, I probably caught roughly 10 6-pounders in Minnesota in my life. And I think all but 2 of them have been on a jig and after October 1st.
What's up?
What's up, AJ?
Not much.
Not much. The first couple jig bites weren't that good last Saturday, but the hook set felt really good because they bowed up and they were pretty decent fish.
Okay.
So I suppose you didn't do much fishing last weekend, AJ?
No, I actually didn't do any at all. So,
Congratulations, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, now I can focus on Grand. So
Now we're 100% on Grand.
Yep.
So did you give away all the pulled pork, or are you bringing some of that down to Grand?
No, I gave it all away. I don't want to look at it or smell it or anything anymore.
But you might be in the mood for some pulled pork by November.
Yeah, but I can make more by then.
Okay.
That'll be a problem.
Are you going to get out on the water before Grand?
Yeah, I'll probably get out maybe this week. Let's see. I'll get out a couple times just to knock the rust off, try some things out, see what. I mean, we've been so behind so far this year. I was out 2 weeks ago, and our water temp was still like 75. So
we're still in the Saturday we were like still mid 60s.
Yeah,
but I think we've dropped into the upper 50s now, probably this week here.
Yeah, I looked up when we took our pictures for our wedding. I looked up what the National Weather Service said at that time, and it was 97 degrees, and we had sustained 33-mile-an-hour winds. So it doesn't cool stuff off very quickly. Yeah, on Saturday.
It was pretty windy up here. Bobby wishes he would have brought your Red Craw lipless.
Thank you, guys, all of you. Yeah, we're going on to fishing. I'm excited. I'm excited to throw a spinnerbait. I spent so much time deer hunting when I was younger that I never really fall fished at all. So like the past few years, I've really like been making a point to get out quite a bit because it's a fun time of year because you can really crush them. If you can get on them, you can just it's an absolute blast.
Yeah, I haven't deer hunted since before Brendan was born. I want to say circa 99 or 2000 was the last year I deer hunted.
Yeah, I've like kind of been challenging myself to go later and later. You know, it's close to ice out, breaking skim ice. Now we don't get that hard freeze like you do. We freeze thaw like for like almost all of December, pretty much usually, and usually about the first of the year we finally lock up. But last year we had a little bit of warm weather, and I was out on December 23rd. Was able to catch, and I caught 6. So on a jig.
I feel like if the boat would have been operational, that would have been me last year. Based on we had like ice on, ice out like 3 times in December, which is rare because like usually like by the time Thanksgiving is here, it's over. Like usually if you're fishing second week in November, that's a good year up here where I live. Like you pushed it. And so that was really rough not having the operational boat last year.
Yeah. It's I don't like I got into the whole Demiki rigging thing. This is probably 5-6 years ago because I got the a Helix 7, just 2D, and doing that. And I thought that was really cool. I crushed them. I had one of my best days in that lake that I'd had in years. You know, in December, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a great fisherman. The next week I went out to do the same thing and talked to the guy whose dock I was fishing in front of him. He told me you should have been here last week. I dumped like 20,000 minnows in here, and you can catch them on every cast. So I was humbled really quick.
You didn't realize the week before you were dealing with a stacked deck?
Yeah, just the chummed hole. So
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of game planning for Grand. Kind of looking forward to it. What are you gonna have like a lot of extra finesse jig heads for us? Like you gonna have a supply poured?
I'll have quite a few.
I feel like I've heard the LBJ is a thing. Like
I think so. I think it is. I don't. The one time I was down at Grand, I fished a jig. I didn't catch much on a jig. Caught all my fish on a shaky head, but that was in May, or April.
So post spawn, the spawn to post spawn.
Yeah, a little bit different than this next time.
That's kind of thing. All the shaky head talk, like I was like, think they'd eat a stupid tube?
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah,
it will be tried.
Oh yeah, I was like when we last talked last time. I don't think they're gonna have that like pairing day. I think it'll just be 3 days of regular practice, just like the qualifiers. I think. They didn't say anything
so,
yet.
Now you don't have one guy from each state. You know.
Yeah.
You have a lot more just random, not random, but people who qualified through the open side of it.
So what if people are more in your neck of the woods? What are you, if you hadn't got married last weekend and you were out fishing, or what are you going to be doing this weekend? Like what would you say like people should be doing in Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri? Like what kind of stuff are you saying is like your go-to, tried and true this time of year?
Buzzbait's gonna be number one. Just right out the gate, like it's gonna be a buzzbait. I throw a wake bait a lot because I think, especially if you're fishing places that a lot of people throw buzz baits, a wake bait will get those same bites sometimes. And that's a burn, pause, like, and they'll come unglued on it if they're on it. But that's, kind of in the same category. Same way with a spinner bait or chatter bait, depending on if I'm fishing more grass or not grass. I really like throwing a spinner bait in the fall. I really don't throw it a whole lot the rest of the time of year, but in the fall I will. So one of those two, obviously a jig. It's got to have a jig. I mean, I think you could go out with those three and do well. Then depending on your water, crankbaits, because some places we do still have a lot of grass, especially if it's dying off. It gets tough to fish a crankbait, but not just square bills for the most part. Flat sides if you get like a cold front.
Bobby wants to know what's your go-to wake bait, or is it situational?
Honestly, my favorite one is a blank that I bought years ago. It's a knockoff of the OSP one. Whatever the.
So is it more of a square bill wake or more of a minnow wake?
Square bill, like a short, fat one.
Yeah, like a -1, or like more. Yeah.
And I threw. I did well on like the Strike King 1.5 shallow. And that's not. It'll wake a little bit but not really burning it. You can't get it to wake, but it's only a 6-inch diver or something like that. I'm cranking that down weed lines. I actually caught quite a few on that a couple weeks ago. But this isn't the time to finesse, which is fun. And then I will throw a stupid tube too around this time of year, especially if you're, I think, dying shad. I do well. But I'll tend to throw that tube more as it gets colder.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's different up here. Like if I'm fishing the river up here, it's a different attack than the lakes I'm fishing. So all the jig kind of stuff I walk through, that's all based on natural lakes where I live. Buzzbait. Do you make your own buzzbait, or do you got a buzzbait that you like?
I make my own, but like the one I throw before that was it's the James Watson one.
Worldwide?
Yeah, can't think of what the name of it is.
Who makes that?
It's just like a Booger Man, but cheaper.
I'm trying to remember who
makes. No, it's gonna drive me nuts.
It's the Tackle HD.
Yep.
I'm not that one. Are you a skirted buzzbait guy? Or are you throwing a toad or a swim bait?
I throw. I'll throw a toad. Well, I don't throw a toad really anymore. I'll throw. It's like the Guggen Bandito bug, or Strike King Rage bug type of thing on the back, just because I have them. When I fish the Co a lot, I can't bring everything I own, so that's just something I'm already flipping. So I kind of do dual duty, but I do like throwing a swim bait too, like a 3.8 Kitech.
Yeah, like a little dipper, a little more durable. I like throwing like the reaction. Like if I'm gonna put a swim bait, I usually put a little dipper on there because it's more durable than a K-Tech.
Yeah, I don't throw the actual K-Tech. I got the Do It mold for the same. It's the same thing, but yeah, mine's poured in a harder plastic.
It's a great time to break out the knockoff K-Techs if you don't pour your own.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a little dicey there for a minute.
Well, Ryan, it's not actually a Guggen. I found the mold from Ukraine. It's actually a little bit. I like it a little bit better. The claws are more like a D-bomb length. But I rarely throw it skirted anymore. I think I want to start again just because I think more people are not throwing a skirted buzzbait now.
Yeah. I started the day because I hadn't thrown the max squeaker, so I was like rigging up the night before, hadn't been out, and I had a full size dipper in my boat, and so I put that on under the skirt, and I think that really was like too much for that buzz bait. It really wasn't running right, and so then I ended up ripping it off and just throwing the skirt. So, on the accent buzz bait, the one of the craws, similar to what you're saying, I had done really well with the LaRue hammer craw.
Yep.
That was a good buzzbait trailer for me. Brian wants to know if you're still frogging this time of year where you are.
Yep. Especially, it's a lot more target oriented. Usually, if you get the grass that floats up into like little corners and stuff. I mean, there's times if you get the right day. I would say there's always fish under them. There's times if you get the right day, you can literally just go from each one of those. There's a fish under every single one of them. It's fun because you don't have to cover a ton of water. You can just.
I bet you that bite exists right now in Big Stone.
I bet you it does too.
Bill, did you finish your case of PBR tonight?
So here's that, like the bandito bug. Then usually what I'll do is I'll take off the side ones, just leave the regular pinchers.
Yeah, I would imagine the Z-Man goat would be a good trailer.
Yep. Similar.
I haven't.
Type of deal.
Yeah. Guessing we might skip some buzzbaits on Grand. That could be a thing. All right. Jim says, what's the game plan for breaking down Grand? So I'm right now, basically, I'm in the mode of like watching videos, looking at the map. I've never been there. I basically will get 3 days. Not gonna like get down there early enough to like go to Skiatook or 10 Killer or anything else around there. So it's really just gonna be 3 days. So without getting into specifics, I've kind of already made up my mind, I think, basically the third of the lake that I want to target. I'll probably run some of this by AJ at some point, maybe not on public in the details. So this will be
we can't give away everything we're gonna do.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely have the series of creeks and section of lake that I want to target. I will probably, I haven't done this yet, but I will probably spend a decent amount of time on Google Earth, kind of marking sections and even doing a slightly deeper dive of, definitely things that I want to look at. I think there will be I think there'll still be an offshore bite. So I think there'll be an offshore structure bite still. I'm guessing there will be some kind of live scope bite. I don't know how dominant or how good it'll be. And I think there will also be a shallow bite to be found. I'm going to definitely hone in on one of those and probably ride or die that. I don't know that I'm probably going to go in and force one of those for at least a full day of practice. And if there's any kind of success on that, probably just double down on it. That's kind of where my head's at. I kind of know what my strengths are. And I feel like if I'm going to finish in the top 3, it's probably going to be one of those ways. And that's probably what I'm going to focus on. Because sure, it'll be nice to finish 20th or 40th and get a check and go home with some money for Christmas and pad the fishing account. But really, the top 3 is where it's at. And we really don't have the details yet, but I assume the cut's going to be somewhere around the top 20, 25 for day 3, based on what they did at the qualifiers. And then they're going to pull over at least one co and any co that has enough weight, because the co's are a 5-fish limit in this. So we're going to go from 250 to probably like 25-ish on day 3. I would imagine. They haven't given the full format, but just based on what we know about the Bass Nation and that kind of stuff. And so, honestly, like, I think to finish in the top 3, you better be hovering around the top 10 or 12 after day 2. Otherwise, you got a lot of work to do. So, yeah, aim for the top 3, and if you fall to 37th and get a check, then that's great. But like, it's not a points tournament. Nobody's gonna remember if you take 180th or 27th if you don't make the top 3, or at least you're not. I mean, obviously they make the day 3 for sure. Like, that's always nice, but yeah. So I've got building up my notes. Like, I've got a Google Doc where I'm taking notes, things I want to try, baits I want to try, things I don't want to forget to do while I'm there, things I want to make sure I have ready when I get down there. So that's kind of how I'm breaking it down, and probably have a deeper discussion with AJ. But it's like, I kind of foresee myself mostly power fishing in practice, and then hoping AJ does some dragging behind me to make sure I'm not missing a bite. But that's kind of the high level.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I mean, as a co-angler for this, with 500 guys, I don't really have a shot. I mean, with 100 guys, I didn't have a shot, but now I really don't have a shot. You know what I mean? So my plan, I'm probably going to have a buzzbait or a whopper plopper and a big jig. And that's kind of my plan for the actual tournament. Now for practice, I'm going to be throwing little things. I'm going to throw a drop shot, stuff like that, shaky heads, just to try to figure out where these fish are set up. And that's how I practice almost for all my co-angler tournaments is, I mean, in a tournament, I rarely throw the same thing as my boater. In practice, I never do. So, like, the tournament I qualified to make Grand was at Lake of the Ozarks. And the guy I practiced with was throwing a D-bomb in practice to catch keepers. I never threw a D-bomb in practice. And in the tournament, I weighed in almost all my fish on it. But that's just going to be how it is. Like, I want to find out where these fish are, where they're set up, and then, with finesse techniques, and then try to find the bigger fish with more power fishing, a big jig or throwing the buzz bait, because there's no point in finishing in the middle of the pack,
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a little bit different, right? I mean, yes, your ultimate goal, AJ, right, is to somehow make the top 3 and make the classic, right? But at some point for you, right, there's probably a mind shift of like, okay, if I just put 5 keepers each day, then I'm gonna make some money.
It'll come
right?
back.
You know
around.
what I mean? Like, yeah. So, the shaky head, the stupid tube, like, you're gonna come out in the morning for sure, race day 1, regardless of your power or your guys, and you're gonna be throwing a crankbait or a plopper or whatever. What you're gonna be power fishing, looking for a big bite, throwing a big finesse jig or whatever, right? Like, trying to catch a big bite, because, like, I mean, that's for you to make the top 3. You're gonna need basically 2 giant bites a day, and then somehow fill a limit, right? Like, you need to catch like 2 over 5 a day.
And I'm not sure what they'll actually do for the limit, because Grand now has changed their size limits.
It says just minimum 14 in the rules.
Okay.
But I think that whole thing, I think tournaments get exceptions.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Because now I think their limit's under 14.
Right. Like under 16 or something.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I think I'll be relying more on my 36 volts than I will by my 16 volt this tournament. So we'll see.
So I'm just praying that we don't have a ton of wind. It's always windy there, but
I mean, as a co-angler, you probably want some wind, so that if you get, like, your best chance, like, if I'm just right, is that you get around a guy that found fish, but he's not a great boater.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of wind that makes him uncomfortable and makes him make mistakes and opens the door, right? Like, that's your best case scenario. You don't necessarily want to draw, like, whatever, like, you don't want somebody that's like a legend that's already made the classic 2 times. Like, that's not your ideal draw. You want a guy that, like, found the right fish and is on the deal, but he is not, like, execution is not, 99.
I need to have a guy that can't skip docks.
But he's on them.
Yeah.
He's on a dock pattern, but he's terrible at fishing docks.
Yeah, it's it's going to be fun. When I qualified to fish the Ouachita River, I knew going into that one that it was going to be a flipping deal, and that I really didn't stand a chance at, in the back of the boat, and that's what happened. But going into it, I already had those expectations because these guys are trying to qualify for the Classic. Like they aren't going to give me water. You know what I mean? So that's how I'm going into this one. Going to have fun, but just going to try to catch big fish.
Seems like Grand is kind of on the upswing for numbers. So I think like I don't. I mean, this is not going to be. I don't think it's going to be a whack fest, but I also don't think it's going to be the grimiest fall tournament ever. I think like we're going to get some bites. Like it's not going to be dreadful. I'm not saying that like I'm going to catch a limit each day, but like I don't think it's going to be brutal.
Yeah.
I also don't think that I'll end up catching that many fish in practice. Like day one, there might be some hooks on baits and might swing a couple times, but after that, I don't know that there'll be a lot of probably rolled hooks and cut hooks and things like that after the first day or so. Let's see here. Ice, for me, when the water's in the 60s, I don't even hesitate to throw the frog. And then I would say in the 50s, it's a day-by-day situational thing. And if the water drops below 50, then the frog is definitely going away. But I would even say once you get 55-ish, you can test it. But
yeah. The only time that really works is when you get a warm day in the sun and you can get something matted. But yeah, I'm pretty much the same.
But if it's above 60, sling that thing. But I would say in the fall, like you can test it. You don't need to throw it all day to figure out if they're going to eat it or not. Throw a little bit in the morning, throw a little bit during the middle of the day, throw a little bit at the end of the day. If you don't get bites, like switch it up.
Yeah, and by that time your targets are not there anymore. You know what I mean? Like your grass is all dead. And
yeah. Actually, we talked about doing a co-angler show, so maybe that'll be a winter project. I need to get like AJ, Michael, maybe one other person, and they need to like just like take notes and have like 3 good co-angler stories, like some good ones, like happy endings, and some frustrating ones, and just have them lined up.
I can't tell my best co-angler story because that guy beat you.
Oh, what? Okay,
at lacrosse.
Oh, you fished with Hamner?
Yeah.
It has been enough time, and I will say the Evo is good. It's right. I don't think twice about tying on an Evo versus a jackhammer. Like it's really good. Like, have you thrown the Evo at all?
I haven't thrown it at all. No, I started making my own. So
Stearman says his prediction is AJ draws live scoper days 1 and 2 and has a great time.
It's possible.
Larger I don't really change my frog up that much. Honestly, I tend to throw. I don't really throw the small frogs, and I don't really throw the jumbo frogs. I pretty much throw the 65 or that style frog most of the time.
Yeah, I throw the big live target most of the time anyway, so.
Yeah, I don't see. To me, I've never thrown the tungsten Thunder Cricket. I don't intend to buy any of the tungsten Evos. Maybe I'm missing out. But
yeah,
I also don't feel the need for a tungsten swim jig either, or a tungsten spinner bait. Like the need for a tungsten on a moving bait is so niche that.
The only time I think the tungsten jackhammer comes into play is when you're throwing the big, the ounce plus ones. It'd be nice to have that smaller profile.
just so you're not busting their mouth open on the hook set as badly. Unless there's something with the blade hitting the head that makes some kind of noise that makes it different on the tungsten. But I would think it would be trickier to get your blade to contact. I haven't picked one up, so I'm kind of just talking a little bit out of speculation here. But like the lead head is better positioned for the blade to hit it because it's bigger and bulkier. So you got right when it's like the smaller the like there's less like to get that right. I don't know. Yeah, just get the regular Evo and use the Omnia code and get them for like $8 a piece.
I already had to waste my code for Omnia of yours.
Did you waste it on blanks to paint?
I wasted it on DT6s to paint, but I had a customer that needed some, so.
So you use the October code for DT6s already?
Yeah. I forgot about having Grand coming out. I probably got everything. I'm sure I won't buy any tackle between now and then.
I got a couple things on my list. Not a lot, though.
Travis, it was on Saturday. It's done.
Did you guys just, I forget, it was local, right? Like,
yep.
Smallish, biggish?
250.
It's pretty solid size. And you catered it yourself, right?
I did all the food for it, so. She did everything else. All I did was food. I'm going to tell her, Travis, she liked you.
No, I definitely, I'm not saying tungsten doesn't have a place. I'm just saying I'm moving. Like, I don't see it for swim jigs. I don't really get it for swim baits. I don't really get it for chatterbaits. Because, like, now I will dabble with tungsten for, like, hanging minnows and some of that stuff that's in the middle of the column because it is easier to sometimes see that stuff. And then for field baits, like football jigs, obviously this Bass Tech jig is tungsten, Texas rigs, flipping, like, so I like tungsten a lot. I just don't get it for most moving baits unless I'm trying to see it. But like chatterbaits and those kind of things, if you're trying to slow roll them and watch them on scope, they're really easy to see already. You don't really need it. So
I'm not a big tungsten drop shot. Like I pretty much always throw lead because either I'm in grass where it doesn't really matter that much, or I'm in rock where I'm losing them. So kind of just gone to straight lead for all my drop shots.
I think, yeah, there's a few situations where I definitely I have a lot of tungsten, but there are situations where I'll definitely go lead, like Vermilion.
Yeah.
But like Lake St. Clair is a place that you can throw tungsten drop shot weights without a care in the world. Like there is nothing to hang out there, so you might as well.
That's how I thought Winnebago was. Like some of those offshore rock piles felt like you were just pulling over bowling balls. Like you never got snagged. Just nice smooth rock.
So what I guess in your neck of the woods in the fall, what's the key? Are you looking for grass? Are you looking for rock transitions? Are you looking for bait? Like what is the thing that you're like first looking to dial in on a lake? Pockets, points, I don't know.
Usually the grass lines, especially if you can find green grass like you were talking about before. Because you know, especially right now, because we've been so dry for so long that the water's dropped so much, it's matted up, and a lot of it's getting almost choked out because most of the lakes are 2-3 feet low. So they're sitting on the outside of that grass line, or they're sitting under the mats. If you can get a good mat that's laid over, those are the first places. Wood, when it gets, as it gets colder, they're going to hold to wood and rock piles, but rock piles can be real hit or miss this time of year. They're either on it or they're You can have really good days, and sometimes you just have to bounce around to a bunch of them, and you'll find one that they're sitting on. But me personally, I'm always grass first, then wood, then rock. But it's all situational. Like I just like fishing grass because then I can throw a frog or moving bait next to it. It's something where I can fish a lot faster.
Cold weather gloves. So this time of year, with the cool mornings, I'm always the same gloves I'm wearing during the summer, right? Like the Arsenal sun gloves. They do a pretty good job till about 40, keeping your hands warm. And then when we get into like the 30s, then I typically will throw like a wool glove over that, like a fingerless wool glove.
Yeah, I'm the same way up until it gets down to like 40. Then I'm a big fan of the Sims fingerless wool gloves. I had a couple pairs of the Fish Monkeys, and they just didn't hold up as long as I wanted. But I think those Sims, the thing I like about the Sims the best is that the cuff is really thick on it, so it keeps your wrist warm. But I'm a big fan of the Sims fingerless wool gloves. And I mean, I've worn fingerless gloves my whole life. Even when hunting, I never wear full finger gloves, and those Sims ones are by far the best ones I've had.
Let's see. AJ is not from Wisconsin.
No, I fished a tournament up there last year. Last year, yeah.
Yeah, I've actually fished 4 or 5 tournaments on Bago. I actually think this is not a popular opinion, but I think it's a great tournament venue. Like, is it a place where people are going to smash 20 plus pounds consistently? Or there's a lot of big bags? No. But from a strategy and like diversity and not catching fish in the same spots all the time year to year, I think Bago's a pretty cool, like the Bago, Winneconne, Wolf, like that whole chain. Like
Yeah.
if they decide to go out of Winneconne like they do for the BFLs, or they go out of the lake like a lot of the Bass Nation stuff does, it completely changes the dynamic of where to go and the strategy and the no wake zones. And like some of the no wake zones are not in effect during the week, and then they are in the weekend. And like you got dirty water, you got clean water, you got grass, you've got, there's just a lot, largemouth, smallmouth. It's a lot going on. You got multiple rivers. I don't know. It's pretty interesting fishery.
Yeah, it is. It was fun because you got to do something different, like run way up a river and fish current for smallmouth, or dirty water current for smallmouth, fish main lake for smallmouth, or go back in canals and fish. I mean, that's what I did on each day. Then I fished canals one day for largemouth, flipping pads and stuff. I found out I was a way better smallmouth fisherman than largemouth. For something, and we have no smallmouth around here, so.
Travis is admiring the wall back there.
Yeah, there's too much stuff on it though. It's all for sale. Well, most of it.
Have you finally caught up on your stupid tube pouring?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's about 5 packs and 3/16 left, and that's the lowest one. So, yeah, it was real hot and heavy there for a minute, which I very much appreciate, everyone.
So you can confirm that content creators can affect sales?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, when you put your Vermilion video out, I didn't know if the video was out, but then all of a sudden I started getting stupid tube orders. It's like, oh,
That's
video
funny.
must have dropped.
Oh, I'll have a video to watch tonight. Oh, I don't know what else is. So you got no tournaments, just Grand. That's it for the year.
Yep, just Grand. We have a club tournament next weekend, but it's a 2-day event down in Mark Twain in Missouri, and I'm not going to fish that one. It was just too close to go take that much time off after taking off time for the wedding, then taking off time for Grand. So, yep, just grand.
Boss ain't gonna let you take time off.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sell some stuff. So hopefully,
say that stuff might all be in a Rubbermaid tote in the back of AJ's truck at Grand Lake. He might be peddling stuff at the meeting and the weigh-in.
yeah, I'll just bring all the rock crawlers down. There's people down there that'll throw them.
I did not give AJ a heads up on the stupid tubes.
No, the first time was way worse because I had somebody order the rest of them the day before, and then your video came out, and I was just out. And people were sending me emails, and I'm like, I'm getting it done. I'm trying.
I guess I'm not that egotistical to think that I was going to have that big of impact.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, AJ will sell a few tube heads. It'll be good. Next thing you know, he's hundreds of heads later. He's still pouring and catching up. But
yeah, it's fine though. Like I have no problem doing those because it's not like I make money on those, so it's not like tying jigs. Tying jigs is just something I do to have something else to sell, but I don't. I give so much kudos to those guys that can pump them out because I just can't. I'm too slow.
that's called a labor of love, I think.
Yeah.
What's up, Sean? Yo. Maybe I should tie on a rock crawler down at Grand and try to catch him on that. Shift the.
It'll feel good. Fishing where they're meant to be, you know.
I've actually never caught a bass on a rock crawler.
No, well,
and
if
I've
you
actually
try it long enough at Grand, you will.
I've thrown very few casts with a rock crawler. I actually only own a couple. I think the first rock crawler I ended up getting, yeah,
me too,
was when I bought that lot last summer off Facebook. So,
yeah, I got a bunch more I need to paint when Omnia did their buy two get one free deal. Loaded up on those, so.
Hopefully, it's sad, Sean. It's probably the only crankbait you had. I know you have so few crankbaits and so little tackle, Sean. That must have been truly heartbreaking. What's Panger's not going to hook us up with anything? Panger's fishing in this tournament.
Yeah.
I think isn't that called slat board?
Yep, slat wall. It's the way to go. Because then you can move everything side to side. That comes from working retail for most of my life. Realizing how nice that is.
Travis says he gets way more bites on the little crawler.
The deep one or the shallow one?
I didn't even know there was two different sizes.
Yep.
Sam says, heading to Japan in January, what should I be looking for when I raid the bait shops? I don't know.
I've seen some of them have used baits. That's what I would go digging through.
I guess the thing that I would be most interested personally would be if you could get the grass piece bass puzzle or bass puzzle grass pieces for a reasonable price over there. Travis says he's guessing the shallow.
Yeah, they make the DD version came out just last year or the year before. They're that much smaller.
But I assume we're like meal prepping and not going out to dinner every night. So what are you thinking, AJ? What are you thinking? What are you so we're gonna be there, let's see, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're gonna feed it. So we're gonna basically have 4 nights. So if we each make 2 meals and then leftovers will probably be pretty good. So what are you thinking for your 2 meals?
Well, I'd bring pulled pork for sure.
So pulled pork, okay.
Easy. We can vacuum seal it and heat it easy.
Right. So then you can just like
Some
microwave it.
beans.
You can boil it in the bag. Like you got like okay. So pulled pork. I will probably definitely bring burgers, like from our cow. That'll be easy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll
Tacos.
probably bring burgers and steaks. Will be my 2 meals probably.
I'll bring tacos.
There we go.
Look at that.
Are you gonna so with your tacos? Are you gonna pre-cook the beef before you
Yeah,
go?
I'll figure out what I want to do. I might do chicken. I'll just figure out what I have.
Okay, yeah, but you'll pre-cook and then similar like
Yeah.
you'll vacuum and peel it. So then it's like literally.
So like what I'll do a lot of times, I'll buy like the 10-pound bags of chicken quarters, then season them, smoke them, then shred them, then vacuum seal them.
So we'll probably do Saturday and Sunday. Will probably be AJ's meals because they'll be like prepped and ready to go.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably have to get off the water earlier on like, well, we have a full off day though. I think they feed us on the off day.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'll probably grill out later in the week on the days that we can't stay out until dark. To be the kind of tentative. Favorite energy drink. The 2 that I get the most common are the sugar-free Red Bull in the smaller version, or I'll grab a Celsius. That's my 2. On the rare occasion that I drink an energy drink.
I'm
kind
a
of trying
white.
to dial that back. And what's that?
I said I'm White Monster and then Black Rifle. Usually I'll have those Black Rifles in the morning if I need another one. Not always.
Yeah. I mean, day in and day out, I'm just a Diet Mountain Dew guy. Definitely will go through my share of Diet Dew at Grand Lake. And then energy drink there'll probably be an energy drink in the boat for like tournament day in case it's just like we gotta like we need a rally or something, or like you just for whatever reason you don't sleep that great the night before or whatever, you just need that like power through. Or you're like with 250 boats, one of the days we'll have like if you're early one day and late the other, you'll be like doing it at 2:30 or whatever, and then the other day you're going to be doing it like 5:30, and you're like that's a long day.
Jim, if we do when you're asking about my bag, if we do a co-angler version, I'd go through my bag. I think I've got it down pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Future. Maybe we could record that. Maybe we'll do that on Tuesday.
Yeah, we can do
our
that.
off day. So yeah, I don't know. We get me and another guy split a half a beef, so I get a quarter beef. So yeah. I actually, I don't mind a Mountain Dew Zero as a change up, but I actually prefer Diet Dew because I think the Mountain Dew Zero tastes more like Mellow Yellow than it tastes like Mountain Dew. But
I think the wiggle wart versus rock crawler thing, it's if you've got a lot of wiggle warts, you can throw a lot of wiggle warts. If not, rock crawler works. They're the same out of the package. What I've learned, like painting a lot of baits, sanding them, then priming them, you really see the imperfections in a bait, and the rock crawlers are amazingly consistent compared to a lot of other brands.
see, I would never try the Ghost Swedish Fish because I pretty much only drink the 0-calorie drinks. So I don't try all these crazy ones. I'm not that big a fan of Baja Blast. I know they do have a Baja Blast Zero now, don't they? But not really. I mean, I'll drink it in a pinch. I don't know how many. There was a pretty good stint this past summer or last year or so. They had the $5 breakfast box at Taco Bell that you get through the app, which basically means they would rotate like a breakfast chalupa, a breakfast quesadilla, breakfast crunch wrap, and then you'd get a hash browns and you'd get a drink and you'd get 2 of those Cinnabon bites for $5. pretty good deal. Like you get a sandwich, hash browns, dessert, and a drink for $5. But there was a stretch where this one lady every morning, because I would order an app ahead of time, and so I would put in like do zero, and she'd like try to hand me a Baja Blast Zero, and I'm like, nope. And then she'd have to go re-pour it. Jim's old school. He's a coffee guy. I should have, that would be Gabe would be I think so. Gabe would be a perfect one to bring in. Like, if you, Michael, and Gabe would be like the ultimate co-angler story. But the only thing I worry about is Gabe is too nice, and he may not tell he won't tell the real dirt, even if it's anonymous. That'd be my concern about Gabe. Did you see that Gabe won the regional for the BFL?
I did.
Just won
I was waiting for his
boat.
video to come out. I'm interested. I've tried to watch all of his co-angler videos.
Oh, it's been an hour already. Wow. So what else is so what do you have to do to get ready from a co-angler perspective? Like what does your prep look like? I kind of talked about what I'm doing.
Me, like when I look at stuff now, I've been to Grand and I fished a lot of lakes like Grand, so like I already have an idea of color. Like one of my big things is colors. Like what color do you throw? I try to keep it pretty simple. I'm pretty much a green pumpkin, black and blue for my soft plastics, just because you don't know. Try not to go too far down the rabbit hole and buy new tackle just for one event, but I try to find colors that work. Like the brown jigs. Then baits. There's always something like do D bombs work better or sweet beaver stuff like that. I try to keep everything. I try to have a few items instead, because when I first started out, I'd bring everything I own pretty much, and then
like back of the car, back of the truck is just full of tackle.
Yeah, and then you'll never be able to weed through it. So that's the stuff that I look for. Then, because I don't know what I'm going to be fishing, so I try to be prepared for everything, or at least have something that'll do double duty. So, like I can throw a big jig, a football jig up shallow. I can throw it deep, depending on sizes. For crankbaits, I'm gonna try to keep it simple, and that's really tough for me. Have square bills, have something rock crawler esque. I don't know if that'll really play that time of year, but it might. And then, just have the meat and potatoes things that like for my drop shots, I'm probably gonna have just a couple packs of robo worms, and I might try a baby Z2 just if we find fish that are on those really small shad, stuff like that. But I really try not to overthink it nowadays. So
I mean, you're not. I mean, your co-angler kit doesn't vary widely. Like you kind of have your core, and then you're just kind of sprinkling in a few things. Yeah, I would think this one, compared to like when you come up to La Crosse or come up to like some of our grass fisheries, like I almost think like Grand Lake would be easier for you to prepare for.
Yeah, it is. It's way more
like a Table Rock, a Grand, like
yeah.
There's not that many things.
No. So, and you just got to get it. Like a lot of times, you just have to get it in front of that fish. So,
Travis, I am not a big spinnerbait guy, but I will definitely have a spinnerbait tied on for this.
Yeah, I will have spinnerbaits.
It's funny because like I rarely throw spinnerbaits up here, but like when I did well at Pickwick, that was on a spinnerbait. The first day at Watchtower River was on a spinnerbait. Like for some reason, I go down south and I see shad, and all of a sudden I think I'm freaking Jimmy Houston and KVD combined. All of a sudden. That's a good question. So I believe this is for you. do you have different reels that you swap out? Do you carry extra spools or extra reels in your bag?
I have before. I really don't anymore. I've kind of got it down to what I want. So, I mean, pretty much this is what I'll have. I'll have a 7.3 medium heavy for finesse jigs, stuff like that. I will have like a 7.4 heavy for any heavier flipping or big jig type stuff. Um, I'll have probably one spinning rod, depending on how practice goes. I I don't like throwing a drop shot and the shaky head on the same rod. I have a rod for each of them. I for whatever reason can't throw it on the other one. That would be the only hang up I have. But then outside of that, I'll have a top water rod. That'll be like a 7-foot medium with mono, and that'll be my square bill rod too, just so I can double duty that rod. I'm only going to have 6 rods probably. I know I won't have more than 6 rods, and it might come down to 5, just depending on. Now I'm going to have 6, but I really try to do double duty on everything. So I try to keep something with thin mono if I'm going to do a lot of cranking, or thin fluorocarbon if I know I'm going to do a lot of cranking. If not, I'll usually just use that top water for my square bill rod as well, and then we'll just see how it is like that. I might vary my finesse jig rod to somewhere between like 14 and 16. If I go 14, I feel comfortable switching that and cranking with it, but I don't bring other rods. The only time I ever get hung up is when braid comes into the equation. That's the only time I ever have any real problems with trying to decide what rods and reels to have. That was the only time I ever brought another reel, was an extra braid reel fishing up north. But we won't need that.
That's like, yeah. But you can always have an extra. I think that's just a good idea as a co-angler. Like if you just having a reel with like 40-pound braid in your bag
Mm-hmm.
can get you out of a pickle if your boater just does something completely off the wall that you weren't expecting, right?
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you find yourself I don't know, doodle socking tire reefs that you didn't think you'd be doing. You'd be like, well, let me reach down in here and right, I don't know,
Yeah. I try to keep everything simple, and I try to have rods that I can do more than one technique with. So, like I'm comfortable throwing buzz baits and whopper ploppers on fluoro. So whatever I have for a heavy rod for that I'll throw either a Texas rig with, usually a Texas rig, and that'll go back and forth. So just trying to
even as a boater, I typically keep. There's a couple rods that I like. I'll have an extra braid reel spooled up in my boat, so that if something comes up, like I can switch it. Like you break the rod that you're using, or yeah. I don't know. It doesn't hurt to have extra reels in the boat. There's plenty of room in a boat, but for a co-angler, I think keeping one extra reel with 40-pound braid can go a long ways to change. You can change most rods over. That rod that you're throwing a Texas rig on, and all of a sudden you find out you're on a frog bite that you didn't imagine was going to happen. Like all of a sudden, 40-pound braid on a Texas rig rod will get you out of a jam, right?
Yep. And that's usually what'll happen is I'll switch my frog rod out, because I throw the Dobbin 736, the Champion 736 for my frog rod, and I only throw that for frogs. But then I have my old frog rod, which was an old G-Man Quantum, and it's worn out now. It's way more parabolic than it used to be. Well, now I'll use that. Like if I know I might be throwing a buzz bait or something, or a jig, I'll use that and just keep the braid on it. But that'll be when I'm doing double duty and I know that I only might throw a frog. But if I know there's a chance at a frog, I'll have the frog rod, just because I feel so much more comfortable with it.
Travis says 8 years ago, I'd say a spinnerbait and a jig, but now I don't see how it's not live scope.
Right?
Huh?
There's still big fish under docks. come out and eat a buzz bait or a spinner bait or a jig.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's potentially a thing. But here's my my hot take, not to like, but in this 250 boat field, there's probably more than 3 guys that can't out live scope.
Yep.
So that's not what I'm going to hang my visor on this week.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I agree. It's a lake that you can catch fish up shallow. There's no point in trying to do something you're not comfortable with.
So, and I don't know if enough people are thinking like Travis is, and enough people are out there chasing that bite. Maybe there's room for some old school to make some hay in this tournament.
That lake will depend on if there's rain too, because it'll get dirty in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. But it all goes back to the right, like if my ultimate goal was just to cash a check, maybe I would think differently. But yeah, I'm gonna stick to my strengths in this one, I think.
I might have to pack some of these.
DT's out. Dustin,
I don't know. Has anybody have much experience with the gravel dogs?
I haven't bought one.
I haven't thrown them yet. I had when they first came out. I did a bunch for people. Then I haven't heard a whole lot. I mean, granted,
they haven't been reordering.
Well, the problem was they came out like April, so it was after that season. You know, it was kind of over. So I don't know if it was just bad timing for the release because I think they released them at the Classic, so not April, March, but still, it was. You know, it's a fall, winter, early spring day.
Sure. The time's coming around again right now, right? Like,
yeah. So we'll see. If I don't sell them, I'll probably bring some.
Dustin went to Lake St. Clair and did not have the time of his life for his TBF tournament up there. He said it sucked. He did not have a good time. Gator says, my brother-in-law is not a fan. I'm guessing he's talking about the gravel dog. TN Bassmasters, I'm getting live scope very soon. Anything I should know, pay attention to? Well, assuming you're putting it on your own vessel, make sure you get your wiring right and that you got clean power. Like, don't hook it into like the control panel on your boat. Run direct wires to your box and your unit. Make sure you got good clean power. That'll be your biggest thing. Maybe even think about a small lithium battery just to run your live scope. I don't know what your setup is, but make sure you got the right power. If you don't have the right power, you're not going to get as much out of it. Other than that, it's a great learning tool. Like, it's not Lawrence Ping. That's the new one. That's the I don't know much about that one, but you still want, I would assume you still want clean power to that, good voltage. I don't know much about that, but I'd say it's a great learning tool. Don't get so hung up on necessarily like looking at fish and casting fish, but like just use it as a live observation tool. Like, see where bait is, watch how your bait falls. You know, when you count down your chatterbait and you think you counted it down to 8 feet and you start reeling it in and you realize your chatterbait's only 3 feet down. Like, you know, so it's a good learning tool, good tool, use it. The other thing is to get your reps in. If you got some lakes around that are good crappie lakes, go crappie fishing with it. It's a great way to like get used to like what the distance is and tracking your bait and seeing fish and having success early. We would do some crappie fishing. It's kind of like if you can see an 1/8 ounce jig on your, live front facing, then when you throw a traditional bass bait, It's a lot easier to see it and you can track it. Like if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Might have to do that, Dustin.
Yeah. Tuesday brunch. Is that a lunch? Is that a dinner? I don't know what that is. Is it? Well, when is the proper time to eat chili and cinnamon rolls?
Any time of day.
Is it a breakfast thing or more of a lunch dinner?
It's more of a lunch dinner thing. Mostly it's a lunch thing. Like we got it at school for lunch.
Stearman, the top 3 go to the DFW Classic on Ray Roberts. Yeah, it's not quite close enough to watch the weather. We're another week we can start watching the extended forecasts.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's been so hot here. I mean, we've had a couple cool nights where it's gotten like upper 30s, but it's still getting into the upper 80s during the day. So I think Sunday here we're gonna have a big cold front come through where we're gonna be 30s for lows and 60s for highs.
Yeah, it was Monday morning. It was 39 when I left the house, and when I landed in Vegas, it was 101.
Yeah.
Did you travel with any cooking, or you just use what you got when there? What's your?
I do have a Blackstone I can bring, a little one.
Oh, look, very Kansas of you, Travis. Justin says he used less than 10 drop shot baits in 5 days at St. Clair. So even the rock bass weren't biting. It's not good.
Depends on what you're using. If you're using a baby Z2, you might get away with that.
Yeah. Like 10 baits in 5 days. If you're throwing Z2s, you had a banner time.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a long day traveling from Vegas for an impromptu stream. I feel like we covered a lot. 90 minutes in. Sure, AJ's got baits to paint and pork to pull and things to prep and a wife to tend to now. I mean,
yep.
Things are different now.
I got one thing I'll show you for a sneak peek to everybody.
Uh-oh. Might have to go big screen. Pound and a half pound rock bass. That's a doozy, Dustin.
It's not even a bait. Yeah.
Not even a bait. Yeah.
Just a box. But figure for Halloween coming up.
There you go. Often.
Just have to figure out what's going to be in it.
So you got the packaging done for a fall special from Horseshoe, but you don't know what's going into it.
Yep, not yet.
Travis, what is it? It's the 7th, 8th, 9th? Does that sound right?
Something like that. It's right in there.
The second is the Saturday. The 2nd, I think, is the official practice start, and we practice Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday's off, tournament Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But you have to make the cut to fish Friday. 6th, 7th, and 8th. Yeah, that was close. But we'll tune in. Probably, I would imagine, as long as we have some kind of service or Wi-Fi out there, we'll have some impromptu stream either Tuesday or Wednesday night that week. But sounds good. Well, appreciate you coming on, AJ.
Yep.
Talk more soon. Thanks everybody that tuned in tonight. As always, here to help you guys catch more big bass and suck less.